Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya. We're reading Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, Madhya Lila, Chapter 2. And we're at text number 10.
So we'll continue with this. We had
Well,
skipped
what I
over.
thought would we didn't finish the Uddhava story, so I thought we'd go a few verses, and then we'd switch back over to where we were and finish the Uddhava stories from Krishnava.
উপবন উদ্যান দেখি বৃন্দাবন গান তাহা যাই নাচে গায় ক্ষণে মূর্ছা যান.
Sometimes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mistook the small parts of the city for Vrindavan. Sometimes he would go there, dance and chant, and sometimes fall unconscious in spiritual ecstasy.
তাহা নাহি শুনি যেই ভাবের বিকার সেই ভাব হয় প্রভুর শরীরে প্রচার.
The extraordinary transformations of the body due to transcendental feelings would never have been possible for anyone but the Lord, in whose body all transformations were manifest. Purport. The ecstatic transformations of the body described in such exalted literatures as the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu are practically not seen in this material world. However, these symptoms were perfectly present in the body of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. These symptoms are indicative of Mahabhava, or the highest ecstasy. Sometimes sahajiyas artificially imitate these symptoms, but experienced devotees reject such imitations immediately. The author admits herein that these symptoms are not to be found anywhere but in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
হস্তপদের সন্ধি সব বিতস্তি প্রমাণে সন্ধি ছাড়ি ভিন্ন হয় চর্মরহে স্থানে.
The joints of his hands and legs would sometimes become separated by 8 inches, and they remain connected only by the skin. Brother Vindhyavali, can you estimate on your screen how far 8 inches is?
I don't know. I can't exactly tell, Prabhu.
So about this much? Less than a foot, but so can you imagine the
Skin will be
hands
like
and legs?
Yeah.
hard.
The joints of the hands and legs. Come on. It's a little unusual, of course, to say the least. Text 13.
হস্ত পদ শির সব শরীর ভিতরে প্রবিষ্ট হয় কূর্ম রূপ দেখিয়ে প্রভুরে.
Sometimes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's hands, legs, and head would all enter within his body, just like the withdrawn limbs of a tortoise.
এই মতো অদ্ভুত ভাব শরীরে প্রকাশ মনেতে শূন্যতা বাক্যে হা হা হুতাশ.
In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to manifest wonderful ecstatic symptoms. His mind appeared vacant, and there were only hopelessness and disappointment in his words.
কাহা মোর প্রাণনাথ মুরলী বদন কাহা করো কাহা পাও ব্রজেন্দ্র নন্দন.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to express his mind in this way. Where is the Lord of my life who is playing his flute? What shall I do now? Where should I go to find the son of Maharaj Nanda?
কাহারে কহিব কেবা জানে মোর দুঃখ ব্রজেন্দ্র নন্দন বিনু ফাটে মোর বুক
To whom should I speak? Who can understand my disappointment? Without the son of Nanda Maharaj, my heart is broken.
এই মতো বিলাপ করে বিহ্বল অন্তর রায়ের নাটক শ্লোক পড়ে নিরন্তর
In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always expressed bewilderment and lamented in separation from Krishna. At such times, he used to recite the shlokas from Ramananda Roy's drama known as Jagannath Vallabh Nataka. This is Sanskrit. Prema cheda rujo vagachati harir nayam na cha prema va stana stana bhavaiti napi madano janati no dudbala anyo veda nachanya dukamakilam no jivanam vashravam dvitranyeva dinana yovanamidam ha ha vidhe kagati. Srimati translation, Srimati Radharani used to lament, our Krishna does not realize what we have suffered from injuries inflicted in the course of loving affairs. We are actually misused by love because love does not know where to strike and where not to strike. Even Cupid does not know of our very much weakened condition. What should I tell anyone? No one can understand another's difficulties. Our life is actually not under our control. For youth will remain for 2 or 3 days and soon be finished. In this condition, O Creator, what will be our destination? Purport. This verse is from the Jagannath Vallabh Nataka 3.9 of Ramananda Roy. Yeah. So we're getting another flavor of Lord Chaitanya's final pastimes. So I thought at this point we would go back to where we were in Uddhava's visit to Vrindavan, where we were reading last week. And the reason is because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities are compared, when Uddhava spoke and delivered the message of Krishna to the residents of Vrindavan, and then specifically the gopis. Prananath Prabhu, are you able to read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, yes.
Thank you. You see? Yes. What happened? Oh, there. Okay. Can you read?
Not yet. I don't. Is this
You don't see
screen
anything?
shared?
You don't see the screen?
Not yet.
Wait, I'll stop share and do it again once.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Can you see now?
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Uddhava entered the house of Nanda Maharaj and was received as a representative of Vasudeva. Nanda Maharaj offered him a sitting place and sat down with him to ask about messages from Krishna, Balarama, and other family members in Mathura. He could understand that Uddhava was a very confidential friend of Krishna's and therefore must have come with good messages. My dear Uddhava, he said, how is my friend Vasudeva enjoying life? He is now released from the prison of Kamsa and he is now with his friends and his children, Krishna and Balaram. So he must be very happy. Tell me about him and his welfare. We are also very happy that Kamsa, the most sinful demon, has been killed. He was always envious of the family of the Yadus, his relatives. Now, because of his sinful activities, he is dead and gone, along with all his brothers. Please let us know whether Krishna now remembers his father and mother and his friends and companions in Vrindavan. Does he like to remember his cows, his gopis, his Govardhan hill, his pasturing grounds in Vrindavan? Or has he now forgotten all these? Is there any possibility of his coming back to his friends and relatives so we can again see his beautiful face with its raised nose and lotus-like eyes? We remember how he saved us from the forest fire, how he saved us from the great snake Kalia in the Yamuna, and how he saved us from so many other demons. And we simply think of how much we are obliged to him for giving us protection in many dangerous situations. My dear Uddhava, when we think of Krishna's beautiful face and eyes and his different activities here in Vrindavan, we become so overwhelmed that all our activities cease. We simply think of Krishna, how he used to smile and how he looked upon us with grace. When we go to the banks of the Yamuna or the lakes of Vrindavan or near Govardhan Hill or the pasturing fields, we see that the impressions of Krishna's footprints are still on the surface of the earth. We remember him playing in those places because he was constantly visiting them. When his appearance within our minds becomes manifest, we immediately become absorbed in thought of him. We think, therefore, that Krishna and Balaram may be chief demigods in heaven who have appeared before us like ordinary boys to execute particular duties on earth. This was foretold by Garga Muni when making Krishna's horoscope. If Krishna were not a great personality, how could he have killed Kamsa, who possessed the strength of 10,000 elephants? Besides Kamsa, there were the very strong wrestlers as well as the giant elephant Kuvalayapida. Krishna killed all these animals and demons just as a lion kills an ordinary animal. How wonderful it is that Krishna took in one hand the big heavy bow made of 3 joined palm trees and broke it very quickly. How wonderful it is that for 7 days continuously he held up Govardhan Hill with one hand. How wonderful it is that he has killed all the demons like Pralambhasura, Dhenukasura, Arishtasura, Trinavarta, and Bhakasura. They were so strong that even the demigods in the heavenly planets were afraid of them. But Krishna killed them as easily as anything. While describing the uncommon activities of Krishna before Uddhava, Nanda Maharaj gradually became overwhelmed and could no longer speak. As for Mother Yashoda, she sat by the side of her husband and heard the pastimes of Krishna without speaking. She simply cried incessantly and milk poured from her breast. When Uddhava saw Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda so extraordinarily overwhelmed with thoughts of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and when he experienced their extraordinary affection for him, he also became overwhelmed and spoke as follows. My dear Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, you are most respectable among human beings because no one but you can meditate in such transcendental ecstasy. Uddhava continued, Balaram and Krishna are the original personalities of Godhead from whom the cosmic manifestation emanates. They are chief among all personalities. Each of them is both the material and the efficient cause of this material creation. Material nature is conducted by the Purusha incarnations who all act under Krishna and Balaram. By their partial representation, they enter the hearts of all living entities. They are the source of all knowledge and all forgetfulness. This is confirmed by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 15th chapter. I am present in everyone's heart and I cause one to remember and forget. I am the original compiler of the Vedanta. I am the actual knower of the Vedas. Uddhava continued. If at the time of death a person can fix his pure mind upon Krishna, even for a moment, after giving up his material body, he becomes eligible to appear in his original spiritual body, just as the sun rises with all illumination. Passing from his life in this way, he immediately enters into the spiritual kingdom, Vaikuntha. This is the result of Krishna conscious practice. If we practice Krishna consciousness in this present body while in a healthy condition and in good mind, simply by chanting the holy Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, we will have every possibility of fixing the mind upon Krishna at the time of death. If we do this, then our lives become successful without any doubt. But if we keep our minds always absorbed in fruitive activities for material enjoyment, then naturally, at the time of death, we shall think of such activities and again be forced to enter material conditioned bodies to suffer the threefold miseries of material existence. Therefore, to remain always absorbed in Krishna consciousness was the standard of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, as exhibited by Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda, and the gopis. If we can simply follow in their footsteps, even to a minute proportion, our lives will surely become successful and we shall enter the spiritual kingdom, Vaikuntha. My dear mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, Uddhava continued, you have thus fixed your minds wholly and solely upon that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, whose transcendental form is the cause of impersonal Brahman. The Brahman effulgence is only the bodily rays of Narayan, and because you are always absorbed in ecstatic thought of Krishna and Balaram, what pious activity remains for you to perform? I brought a message from Krishna that he will very soon come back to Vrindavan and satisfy you by his personal presence. Krishna promised that he would come back to Vrindavan after finishing his business in Mathura. This promise he will surely fulfill. I therefore request the two of you, who are the best among all, who are fortunate, not to be aggrieved on account of Krishna's absence. You are already perceiving his presence 24 hours a day, yet he will come and see you very soon. Actually, he is present everywhere and in everyone's heart, just as fire is present in wood. Since Krishna is the super soul, he regards everyone equally. He sees no one as his enemy, no one as his friend, and no one as lower or higher than him. He actually has no father, mother, brother, or relative, nor does he require society, friendship, and love. He does not have a material body like us. He never appears or takes birth like an ordinary human being. He does not appear in higher or lower species of life like ordinary living entities. who are forced to take birth on account of their previous fruitive activities. He appears by his internal potency just to give protection to his devotees. He is never influenced by the modes of material nature, but when he appears within this material world, he seems to act like an ordinary living entity under the spell of the modes of material nature. But in fact, he is the overseer of this material creation, and while remaining unaffected by the material modes of nature, he creates, maintains, and dissolves the whole cosmic manifestation. We wrongly look upon Krishna and Balaram as ordinary human beings, just as whirling men see the whole world whirling around them. The personality of Godhead is no one's son. He is actually everyone's father, mother, and supreme controller. There is no doubt of this. Whatever is already being experienced, whatever is not being experienced, whatever already exists, does not exist, or will exist in the future, whatever is the smallest and whatever is the biggest, have no existence outside the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything rests in Him, but He is untouched by everything manifested. Nanda and Uddhava thus passed the whole night discussing Krishna. In the morning, the gopis prepared for morning aarti by lighting their lamps and sprinkling butter mixed with yogurt. After finishing their Mangalarti, they engaged themselves in churning butter from yogurt. While the gopis were thus engaged, the lamps reflected on their ornaments made the ornaments still brighter. Their churning rods, their arms, their earrings, their bangles, their breasts, everything moved, and kumkum powder gave their faces a saffron luster comparable to the rising sun. While making sounds by churning, they also sang the glories of Krishna. The two sound vibrations mixed together, ascended to the sky, and sanctified the whole atmosphere. After sunrise, the gopis came as usual to offer their respects to Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda. But when they saw the golden chariot of Uddhava at the door, they began to inquire among themselves, what was that chariot, and to whom did it belong? Some of them inquired whether Akrura, who had taken away Krishna, had returned. They were not very much pleased with Akrura because, being engaged in the service of Kamsa, he had taken lotus-eyed Krishna away to the city of Mathura. All the gopis conjectured that Akrura might have come again to fulfill another cruel plan. But they thought, we are now dead bodies without our Supreme Master Krishna. What further act can Akrura perpetrate against these dead bodies? While they were talking in this way, Uddhava finished his morning ablutions, prayers, and chanting and came before them. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 46th chapter of Krishna, Uddhava visits Vrindavan. Hare
Anybody
Krishna.
have comments or observations, reflections, questions? No? What did so Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, they're absorbed in thinking of this feeling of separation from Krishna and feeling of missing him as their son. And Uddhava comes and speaks transcendental philosophy. There's quite a contrast. What do you think? What do you think, Prananath Prabhu?
But he also says that they are very advanced devotees who are 24 hours thinking of Krishna.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, yes.
uh, so
So it
everything
seems
about the
that
Lord is Sorry.
Yes, it seems as if by speaking the transcendental philosophy, he's in a sense trying to assuage their grief, or isn't it?
Yes, that's about exactly what I'm going to say. Yeah. But
Okay.
for the conditioned living entity, especially for people who are very materially conditioned, when they are in grieving, the same philosophy is not very helpful, right? Sometimes you see.
People think that, yeah. Although
Yeah.
in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna spoke a similar version of a similar philosophy to Arjuna when he was unhappy.
Mm.
Of course, the cause of the unhappiness of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda was a transcendental thing. It's different than somebody missing their material relative or friend. So it's just I thought it's very, very interesting, that part. And the sound of the butter churning mixed with their kirtan ascending the sky, that was very interesting. Do you know the sound of butter churning? I don't know that sound.
Yeah.
Is it a
It's,
pleasant sound?
It's a
it
very
is,
pleasant sound.
it is, and it can be it has a rhythm.
Ah, okay. So it's almost like playing the drum or something. Boom.
I always like that sloka, Prabhu. And the Krishna says that I will give you intelligence, and at the same time I'll give you forgetfulness.
Yes. Mata smritir jnanam apohanam. Yeah. And did you get the example of the whirling man? Not
Which
a
one?
burning man, but a versa, just like a whirling man sees the world whirling around him. So if they have these Muslim people, Sufis, called whirling dervishes. Have you heard those people? They go around in a circle, so it seems like the whole world is going, but actually they're doing it. Yeah.
I always think of that sloka.
Okay, so this is was he's talking with Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda. They got and he continued, even though it seemed in a different level, he was speaking to them about Lord Krishna being the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Obviously, Nanda Maharaj appreciated, because they kept speaking about Krishna all night. Okay, so then the next chapter we'll read also is then he delivers the message to the gopis, and this is where we see the comparison between Srimati Radharani's reaction and Uddhava and Lord Chaitanya. Sorry. Delivery of the message of Krishna to the gopis. When the gopis saw Uddhava, they observed that his features almost exactly resembled those of Krishna. And they could understand that he was a great devotee of Krishna's. Another example of Vaishnava is that person whom, when seen, reminds others of Krishna. You've heard that before in the Nectar of Devotion. So they can be remembered in different ways. They might have a tilak, or they might even look like Krishna. His arms were very long, and his eyes were just like the petals of the lotus flower. He was dressed in yellow garments and wore a garland of lotus flowers. Lord Krishna often wears yellow garments. His face was very beautiful, having achieved the liberation of Sarupya. Sarupya means the same form as Krishna. And thus having the same bodily features as the Lord, Uddhava looked almost like Krishna. In Krishna's absence, the gopis had been coming dutifully to visit Mother Yashoda's house early in the morning. That's very interesting. That's where they saw Uddhava's chariot. They knew that Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda were always grief-stricken. And they had made it their first duty to come and pay their respects to the most exalted elderly personalities in Vrindavan. Wow. Even though they weren't necessarily related, still they came. Seeing the friends of Krishna Nanda and Yashoda would remember Krishna himself and be satisfied. And the gopis also would be pleased by seeing Nanda and Yashoda. This is like Vaishnava's care system. When the gopis saw that Uddhava was representing Krishna, even as his bodily features, they thought he must be a soul completely surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They began to contemplate, who is this boy who looks just like Krishna? He has the same eyes like lotus petals, the same raised nose and beautiful face, and he is smiling in the same way. In all respects, he resembles Krishna, Shyam Sundara, the beautiful blackish boy. He is even dressed exactly like Krishna. Where has this boy come from? Who is the fortunate girl who has him for her husband? Thus they talked among themselves. They were very anxious to know about him, and because they were simple, unsophisticated village girls, they surrounded Uddhava. What do you make of that statement? Because they were simple, unsophisticated village girls. Any comment on that? Mother Vindhyalva is talking, but you're muted.
Because they surrounded Uddhava, which usually other girls don't do, but they are village girls, they don't know. They're so innocent.
Okay, so yeah, so they're if
Yes,
they were
thinking about Krishna,
more sophisticated, they may be somewhat reserved about it, not to get close. Okay.
yeah.
When the gopis saw that Uddhava was representing Krishna, okay. When the gopis understood that Uddhava had a message from Krishna, they became very happy and called him to a secluded place and offered him a nice sitting place. So, secluded place, they didn't want him anybody to hear this. They wanted to talk with him very freely and did not want to be embarrassed before unknown persons. They welcomed him with polite words in great submissiveness. We know that you are a most confidential associate of Krishna, and that he has therefore sent you to Vrindavan to give solace to his father and mother. We can understand that family affection is very strong. Even great sages who have taken to the renounced order of life cannot give family affection cent per cent. Sometimes they think of their family members. Krishna has therefore sent you to his father and mother. Otherwise, he has no further business in Vrindavan. He is now in town. What does he have to know about Vrindavan village or the cows' pasturing grounds? These are not at all useful for Krishna because he is now a man of the city. Surely he has nothing to do with persons who do not happen to be his family members. Who's that?
The gopis.
Yeah. Friendships with those outside the family continue as long as there's some selfish interest in them. Otherwise, why should one bother about those outside the family? Specifically, a person attached to the wives of others is interested in them only as long as there is a need of sense gratification. Just as the bumblebees have interest in flowers as long as they want to take the honey out of them. It is psychologically very natural that a prostitute does not care for her paramour as soon as he loses his money. Similarly, when the citizens find that a government is incapable of giving them full protection, they leave the country. A student, after finishing his education, gives up his relationship with the teacher and the school. Was that right? A priest, after taking his reward from the worshiper, gives him up. When the fruit season is over, birds are no longer interested in the tree. Just after eating in the house of a host, the guest gives up his relationship with him. And after a forest fire, when there is a scarcity of green grass, deer and other animals give up the forest. And so a man, after enjoying his girlfriend, gives up his connection with her. In this way, all the gopis indirectly accused Krishna by citing many examples. Uddhava understood that the gopis of Vrindavan were all simply absorbed in the thought of Krishna and his childhood activities. While talking about Krishna with Uddhava, they forgot all about their household business. They even forgot about themselves as their interest in Krishna increased more and more. So as they're talking about Krishna, they became more and more interested. Yeah. Hopefully that happens for us too. One of the gopis, namely Srimati Radharani, was so much absorbed in thoughts of Krishna by dint of her personal touch with him that she actually began to talk with a bumblebee, which was flying there and trying to touch her lotus feet. When the other gopis were talking with Krishna's messenger, Uddhava, Srimati Radharani took that bumblebee to be a messenger from Krishna and began to talk with it as follows. Bumblebee, you are accustomed to drinking honey from flower to flower, and therefore you have preferred to be a messenger of Krishna who is of the same nature as you. I can see on your mustaches the red powder of kumkum, which was smeared on the flower garland of Krishna, while it was pressed against the breast of some other girl who was my competitor. You feel very proud because of having touched that garland, and your mustaches have become reddish. You have come here carrying a message for me, anxious to touch my feet. But, my dear bumblebee, let me warn you, don't touch me. I don't want any messages from your unreliable master. You are the unreliable servant of an unreliable master. It may be that Srimati Radharani purposely addressed the bumblebee sarcastically in order to indirectly criticize the messenger Uddhava. Oh, so the bumblebee and the Uddhava are both messengers, at least in her, Like the other gopis, Srimati Radharani saw that Uddhava's bodily features resembled Krishna, but she also saw that Uddhava as being equal to Krishna. So, as being equal. Indirectly, therefore, she indicated that Uddhava was as unreliable as Krishna himself. Srimati Radharani wanted to give specific reasons why she was dissatisfied with Krishna and his messenger. She addressed the bumblebee. Your mass is exactly of your quality. You sit down on a flower, and after tasting a little honey, you immediately fly away and sit on another flower and taste. Similarly, only once did your master Krishna give me a chance to taste the touch of his lips, and then he left me altogether. I know also that the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, who is always in the midst of the lotus flower, is constantly engaged in Krishna service. But I do not know how she has become so captivated by Krishna and why she is so much attached to Krishna, although she knows his actual character. Maybe she is so much captivated by Krishna's sweet words that she cannot understand his real character. As far as we are concerned, we are more intelligent than the goddess of fortune. We're not going to be cheated anymore by Krishna or his messengers. According to expert opinion, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, is a subordinate expansion of Srimati Radharani. As Krishna has numerous expansions of Vishnumurti, so his pleasure potency Radharani also has innumerable expansions of goddesses of fortune. Therefore, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Ji, is always eager to be elevated to the position of the gopis. There's an interesting exchange between Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Venkat Bhatt when he traveled to South India about these, highlighting the differences between Lakshmi the wife of Narayan and Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani continued, "You foolish bumblebee, you are trying to satisfy me and get a reward by singing the glories of Krishna, but it is a useless attempt. We gopis are bereft of all our possessions. We are away from our homes and families. We know very well about Krishna. We know even more than you. So whatever you make up about him will be old stories to us. Krishna is now in the city and is better known as the friend of Arjuna. He now has many new girlfriends who are no doubt very happy in his association. Because the lusty, burning sensation of their breasts has been satisfied by Krishna, they are now happy. If you go there and glorify Krishna, they may be pleased to reward you. You're just trying to pacify me by your behavior as a flatterer. And therefore, you have to put your head under my feet. You have put your head under my feet by touching her. But I know the trick you're trying to play. I know that you are a messenger coming from an even greater trickster, Krishna. Therefore, please leave me. I can understand that you are expert in reuniting two opposing parties. But at the same time, you must know that I cannot place my reliance upon you, nor upon your master Krishna. We left our husbands, children, and relatives only for Krishna, yet he did not feel any obligation in exchange. At last, he left us forlorn. Do you think that we can place our faith in him again? We know that Krishna cannot live a moment without the association of young women. That is his nature. He is finding difficulty in Mathura because he is no longer in the village among innocent cowherd girls. He is in aristocratic society and must be feeling difficulty in making friendships with other young girls. Perhaps you have come here to canvass again or to take us there. But why should Krishna expect us to go there? He is greatly qualified to entice all other girls, not only in Vrindavan or Mathura, but all over the universe. His wonderfully enchanting smile is so attractive, and the movements of his eyebrows are so beautiful that he can call for any woman from the heavenly, middle, or plutonic planets, even Mahalakshmi, the greatest of all goddesses of fortune, hankers to render him some service. In comparison to all these women of the universe, what are we? We're insignificant. Krishna advertises himself as magnanimous, and he is praised by great saints. His qualifications would be perfectly utilized if he would only show us some mercy, for we are so much downtrodden and neglected by him. You poor messenger, you are only a less intelligent servant. You do not know much about Krishna, how ungrateful and hard-hearted he has been, not only in this life, but in his previous lives also. We have all heard this from our grandmother, Purnamasi. She has informed us that Krishna was born in a Kshatriya family previous to this birth and was known as Ramchandra. In that birth, instead of killing Vali, an enemy of his friend, in the manner of a Kshatriya, he killed him just like a hunter. A hunter takes a secure hiding place and then kills an animal without facing it. So Lord Ramchandra, a Kshatriya, should have fought with Vali face to face, but instigated by his friend, he killed him from behind a tree. Thus, he deviated from the religious principles of Kshatriya. Also, he was so attracted by the beauty of Sita that he converted Shuparnaka, the sister of Ravana, into an ugly woman by cutting off her nose and ears. Shuparnaka proposed an intimate relationship with him, and as a Kshatriya, he should have satisfied her, but he was so henpecked that he could not forget Sita Devi and converted Shuparnaka into an ugly woman. Before that birth, as a Kshatriya, he took birth as a Brahmin boy known as Vamanadev and asked charity from Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj was so magnanimous that he gave him whatever he had. Yet Krishna, as Vamanadev, ungratefully arrested him just like a crow and pushed him down to the Patala kingdom. We know all about Krishna and how ungrateful he is, but here is the difficulty. In spite of his being so cruel and hard-hearted, it is very difficult for us to give up talking about him. And it is not only we who are unable to give up this talk, but great sages and saintly persons also engage in talking about him. We gopis in Vrindavan do not want to make any more friendships with this blackish boy, but we do not know how we shall be able to give up remembering and talking about his activities. This is a commentary. Since Krishna, oh no, it's not. Since Krishna is absolute, his so-called unkind activities are as relishable as his kind activities. Yeah, this is commentary. Therefore, saintly persons and great devotees like the gopis cannot give up Krishna in any circumstance, in any circumstances. Lord Chaitanya therefore prayed, Krishna, you are free and independent in all respects. You can either embrace me or crush me under your feet, whatever you like. You may make me brokenhearted by not letting me see you throughout my whole life, but you are my only object of love. You know what that verse is that they're, what is that verse?
Mat prananatastu saevana.
Yeah, Ashlashya pada retang pinashtumam madashanam marmahatang karotu va yata tatata vidudatu lampato mat prananata. Yeah, the last verse of the Shikshastakam. In my opinion, Srimati Radharani continued, one should not hear about Krishna because as soon as a drop of the nectar of his transcendental activities is poured into the ear, one immediately rises above the duality of attraction and rejection. Being completely freed from the contamination of material attachment, one gives up attachment for this material world, including family, home, wife, children, and everything else materially dear to every person. Being deprived of all material acquisitions, one makes his relatives and himself unhappy. Thus he wanders in search of Krishna, either as a human being or as in other species of life, even as a bird, and voluntarily accepts the profession of a mendicant. It is very difficult to actually understand Krishna, his name, his qualities, his form, his pastimes, his paraphernalia, and his entourage. Srimati Radharani continued to speak to the black messenger of Krishna. Please do not talk anymore about Krishna. It is better to talk about something else. We are already doomed, like the black-spotted she-deer in the forest who are enchanted by the sweet musical vibration of the hunter. In the same way, we have been enchanted by the sweet words of Krishna, and by thinking of the rays of his toenails again and again, we're becoming more and more lusty for his association. Therefore, I request you not to talk of Krishna anymore. So the hunter blows on a flute, and then the deer becomes stunned, and that's when he shoots. These talks of Radharani with the bumblebee messenger, including her accusing Krishna in so many ways, and at the same time expressing her inability to give up talking about him, are signs of the topmost transcendental ecstasy called Mahabhava. The ecstatic Mahabhava manifestation is possible only in the person of Radharani and her associates. Great acharyas like Srila Rupa Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur have analyzed these Mahabhava speeches of Srimati Radharani and described their different varieties, such as Udgurna, or bewilderment, and Jalpa Pratijalpa, or talking in different ways. These are the signs of Ujjvala-ras, or the brightest jewel of love of Godhead. Hare Krishna. I think we'll stop here. I don't know if you recognize that previous verse. Tatta Caitanya tapta jivanam. Yeah, that's also a nice verse. Questions, comments, observations. I thought we just get a flavor of these Lord Chaitanya's pastimes in the later pastimes in Antya Lila, and as compared to the what was exhibited by the gopis, Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda, and Srimati Radharani in the meeting with Uddhava here. So, Hare Krishna. Comments, questions, observations? Mother Vindhyavali.
Very beautiful, Prabhu, about bumblebee saying, and Radharani was questioning. It was very nice. It was very nectar to hear.
This is very elevated stuff, but
Elevated.
we can appreciate the exalted position of the gopis, Srimati Radharani,
Radharani.
Nanda Maharaj,
And
Yeah.
I
Yes.
also found it interesting that throughout their,
Yeah.
they are trying to show that they're not interested in Krishna and that he's so
But still
bad.
they are interested.
But still, and then there is that one line where they, it almost looks like the opportunity was taken to again say good things about him, like his wonderfully enchanting smile is so attractive and the movements of his eyebrows are so beautiful that he can call for any woman from the heavenly planet. So, I thought that was interesting.
It's so beautiful. It's
So this is understanding of Bhagavan. Aishvaryasya Samagasya Viryasya Yashasha Shriya. Yes. Beauty. Beauty is the top, more beautiful. Everyone has a certain amount of beauty or not, but his God, the Supreme Personality of God, it is the most beautiful of all, the most attractive, all attractive, and even the.
And they couldn't get, they wanted to still say that.
There's a famous verse that Rupa Goswami wrote, as we read in previously, and Srila Prabhupada. There was a picture of Lord Krishna, a famous picture, playing the flute, and in the background is the moon, and there's the Jamuna River, and the cow is there in the picture, playing the flute in the evening time, and Srila Prabhupada had Mother Jamuna write not a transcript. What do you put that on the bottom? I forget the word. Good.
Caption.
Anyway, caption.
Footnote.
Thank you. Caption. Yeah. If you at all value your material friendship, society, and love, do not go to see Krishna in the whose plays is flute in the dark, in the middle of the the darkness of night, because then all your attachments and attractions will be going away. So Srila Prabhupada had Jamuna write that as a caption for that picture. Yes. Okay. Hare Krishna.
That is coming from Rupa Goswami, no?
Yes.
This conversation, today's conversation is, even though in relish, but it's not for beginners, and because they can have wrong connotations. It's for because material world also people always find faults. Oh, look how Ramachandra gave up his wife and this and that. They do it. I was thinking what rasa it is. Now you mentioned it falls under Ujjala rasa.
Yes.
And my understanding that Krishna sent Uddhava not to solace the gopis, rather to teach Uddhava come up. Uddhava had jnana mishran bhakti. His bhakti was mixed with jnana. So that's my understanding, that Krishna sent Uddhava to learn from the gopis.
That was part of his one of his main points. Yes, main motives in doing so. Very good. Yes, thank you for that. Hare Krishna. So they asked. I got a request from Mother Shobharati to read my offering, Vyas Puja offering. Should I do that?
Yes, please, Prabhuji.
Okay. It's about a little bit. There might be a little discussion about that if there's time, but it's okay. Here it is. Dear Srila Prabhupada, Please accept my obeisances at your two dawn-colored divine feet, which carry the potency of eternal loving service to Lord Caitanya. Srila Prabhupada, in reading Srimad Bhagavatam, I came across this verse. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 19th chapter, 31st verse. Anyesham punyashlokanam udama yashasham satam upashutya bhaven moda shrivatsankasya king puna. What to speak of hearing the pastimes of the Lord, whose chest is marked with Srivatsa? People may take transcendental pleasure even in hearing of the works and deeds of the devotees, whose fame is immortal. And there's a brief purport. Bhagavatam literally means the pastime of the Lord and the Lord's devotees. For example, there are pastimes of Lord Krishna and narrations of devotees like Prahlad, Dhruva, and Maharaj Ambarish. Both pastimes pertain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because devotees' pastimes are in relation with him. The Mahabharata, for example, the history of the Pandavas and their activities, is sacred because the Pandavas had a direct relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the end of that purport. Now I'm talking again. Srila Prabhupada, I found this verse revealing and reassuring. Your activities are also sacred. They have a unique flavor, at once bracing and sweet, and just apt to attract the mind. They embody realized wisdom. They are highly instructive since they clearly demonstrate for anyone interested unalloyed devotional service to Lord Caitanya. On hearing or contemplating them, I'm sometimes surprised that I unfailingly become enlivened. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for exhibiting your activities to the world and to me. Otherwise, my life would be worthless. Srila Prabhupada, nowadays, people have so many competing ideas about how to spread Krishna consciousness. Yet, you often simply said to your students, just do as I am doing. Therefore, I want to deeply study how did you do things so that one day I may be able to carry forward your wishes and please you. Some advocate practice of yoga, hatha yoga, and call it bhakti yoga. Others recommend popularizing new mantras, and still others advocate avoiding deity worship. But what did you do? You chanted the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, worshipped Radha Govinda, and engaged others in doing so. You repeatedly asserted, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gatiranyata. You requested that we distribute your books, the books that you authored. I accept that doing as you did will be the most enduring and successful method. In this vein, on this holy occasion of your appearance anniversary, I would like to highlight one anecdote from your pastimes. It focuses on the danger of factionalism that arose in ISKCON and your recommendations of how to prevent it. It continues to have relevance today. As you know, the background is that during the years 1974 to 1976, the Radha Damodar traveling party, comprised primarily of brahmacharis, grew tremendously. It eventually included 6 traveling bus temples and numerous traveling vans under the able supervision of Tamal Krishna Goswami, Vishnujan Maharaj, Keshava Bharati Swami, Adi Keshava Swami, Drishtadumna Swami, Yogesh Chandra, and Brahma. The traveling Sankirtan devotees ventured all over North America, distributing hundreds and thousands of your books and topping contributions to your BBT fund. Gargamuni and Bhavananda Swamis also developed similar itinerant programs at the same time. It became the practice that when the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party and other parties visited ISKCON temples, the sannyasis and brahmacharis would strongly preach to the temple residents that staying in a temple was Maya. And it would be better for their spiritual lives to join their traveling parties. Thus, they would have the association of advanced devotees, that is, sannyasis, and be away from the allure of associating with the Vaishnavis in the temples. Their preaching had effect. It boosted the population of the traveling buses, but also seriously depleted the devotional staffs of temples all across North America. At the Mayapur Festival in 1976, a number of temple presidents complained to you about the difficulty maintaining the deity worship, Sankirtan, and other essential temple functions, since so many of the temple personnel were being spirited away by the traveling Sankirtan parties. Perhaps using the strategy that a best defense is a good offense, the ISKCON GBC, spearheaded by some sannyasis, made a resolution. It declared that householders, who at that time were doing full-time devotional service in temples, temple presidents, pujaris, life membership directors, etc., should not expect to be maintained by the temples and should get outside employment to sustain themselves and their families. Discussion about the resolution spilled over into your morning walk the next day, although the details of the traveling Sankirtan preaching methods were not presented to you. A portion of that walk was recorded and was transcribed by Harisari in his Transcendental Diary. Are you still with me?
Yes.
You still with me? Okay. Okay, this is from the Transcendental Diary. News of yesterday's GBC resolutions traveled fast. Among the householders, there's considerable resistance and resentment. Most temple presidents are householders, and according to the new directives, they will all have to go out and establish outside sources of income while still continuing to run their temples. Many feel that certain sannyasis are questioning their sincerity in being fully dedicated devotees, as if being married is at odds with spiritual principles. Some of the GBC are already having doubts about whether their decisions were either practical or fair. Madhudvi Swami spoke for several others in voicing his concern during Prabhupada's walk. In response, Srila Prabhupada suggested that Grihastas form a small committee to have further discussions. There was some discussion, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj, as the champion of the GBC resolution, repeatedly reminded everyone that the resolutions were not meant to govern the way the Grihastas conduct their personal affairs. He agreed that a committee for that purpose was a good idea, but he said it is for the GBC only to decide what support the society gives them. Srila Prabhupada stressed the important point that we do not want to develop factions within our society. Unity is possible only when there is Harinam constantly. Pushta Krishna Maharaj brought the discussion closer to the root difference between the Grihasta and the sannyasi. The distinction between them is the enjoying spirit and the renouncing spirit. If you want to enjoy, Prabhupada asked, who can stop you? Tamal Krishna Maharaj again made the point, but we cannot support it. We cannot support that Grihasta's enjoyment that he has to take on himself to do. Prabhupada explained that according to different positions and attitudes, the four ashrams are existing. Therefore, everyone is not on an equal platform. But ultimately, the whole idea is to give up the propensity for enjoyment. It was like a seesaw, one party accusing the other. And the last thing Prabhupada wanted was the formation of different factions. He said the whole world is full of isms, one party against another. We should not bring that attitude into our society. He said the accusations of one side against the other are all fanaticism. He gave the solution. Real unity is in advancing Krishna consciousness. In Kali Yuga, you cannot strictly follow. Neither I can strictly follow. If I criticize you, if you criticize me, then we go far away from our real life of Krishna consciousness. You should always remember that either grihasta, brahmachari, or sannyasi, nobody can strictly follow all the rules and regulations. In this Kali Yuga, it is not possible. So if I simply find fault with you, and if you find fault with me, then it will become factional, and our real business will be hampered. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended Harir Nam. Chanting the holy names should be very rigidly performed, which is common for everyone. They should always chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Then everything will be adjusted. Otherwise, it will be impossible to advance, and we shall be complicated with the details only. He said that one should neither neglect the rules and regulations nor pursue them so fanatically that we miss the point of spiritual advancement. He repeated the real formula for success. To advance in Krishna consciousness, simple method, chanting 24 hours a day, Caitanya Sadahari, that things will be automatically adjusted. You cannot find in Kali Yuga everything is done very correctly to the point. That is very difficult. That's Prabhupada's instructions. Later that day, this is commentary. Later that day, a meeting occurred among the temple presidents, as you suggested. The temple presidents formalized their complaint and requested to have an audience with you, Srila Prabhupada, and you accepted. In that meeting, they detailed the heavy-handed preaching methods being used, which were of questionable motivation and were jeopardizing the functioning of temples. When you heard the details, you were incensed. You called for Tamal Krishna Maharaj and seriously questioned his methods. In doing so, you deduced that the temple president's allegations were largely true. Tamal Krishna Maharaj then said, well, what should I do, Srila Prabhupada? Go to China? The next morning, you called Tamal Krishna Maharaj into your room after Mangalarti, and you said, you mentioned yesterday about going to China. Yes, I want you to go to China to preach. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was flabbergasted and argued vehemently against your instruction. Who would manage the Radha Damodar TSKP that was selling volumes of books and remitting large sums to the BBT, those activities which were so dear to your heart? Srila Prabhupada, you said it was ultimately your traveling Sankirtan party, and Lord Krishna would take care. Tamal Krishna Maharaj finally submitted. I find this episode incredibly instructive, Srila Prabhupada. You demonstrated how stopping the growth of ISKCON, factionalism in ISKCON, was the topmost priority for you, even more important than millions of dollars in transcendental book sales. You masterfully navigated the conflict between headstrong and sincere Vaishnavas, arriving at a conclusion that was best for all. You reinforced the straightforward presentation of Krishna conscious philosophy over one motivated by expedience. You showed your real concern for the spiritual lives of all your disciples, and not just those with a big position, or disciples doing conspicuous service, or those who were apparently close to you. And you emphasized that factionalism in ISKCON would ultimately be curtailed by the simple method of chanting the holy names of the Lord. These are wonderful spiritual lessons. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for permitting me to catch a glimpse of your uncommon exploits, and please allow me the exceptional blessing of being able to touch your lotus feet on this day. Your servant, Vishnugada Das. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Questions? Comments?
Thank you, Prabhu, so much. That was your offering?
Yes. I know it's a little long.
I kind of missed whose offering it was. You mentioned, I don't know, how this point came about Grahasthas. I know those days Grahasthas and Sannyas, everyone used to live in one center, so that's why it was financial burden on the temple.
Well, no, it came up because the problem came up because the Radha Damodar party was and others were traveling to different temples and trying to get as many of the brahmacharis in the temples to join them.
Right.
And so of course there's truth to the idea that if you become complacent and stuff, then one way is to deal with it is to travel. But
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that somebody staying in the temple doing service in the temple is Maya. That's what was being preached, and that's why I said that there's an expediency in the in the preaching method. Part of it apparently was motivated by a desire to get more people so they can do more of their stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Time also changes, situation changes. Isn't it those days everyone was devotees are temple residents generally?
Yes. And Prabhupada used to say, "Bring everybody to us, and we'll give them our food and all that stuff."
Yeah.
So sometimes people talk about, well, we'd like to bring the ISKCON back to those days of the early days, right? Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
And that's what was going on in the early days.
Mm.
There are many devotees living in the temple. Not they weren't all brahmacharis or brahmacharinis. There was different, of course, so. But the point, the over point is that there was a faction was being developed in ISKCON between, in this case, the certain preachers and certain temple presidents.
But yeah, people isn't always the like old is gold, right? We always miss those days, miss those times. But as an administration in GBC and temple presidents meeting, is more focus is given is congregation based now. Of course, some residents will be needed, but more focus will be given considering the situation. It'll be nice if it works like the olden days, but just sharing.
The point being that Srila Prabhupada did not approve of the way the preaching was being done. You follow?
Yeah, right.
And that it was not the different sannyasis movement, it was Srila Prabhupada's movement.
Mm.
And he had it set up a certain way, and to change it or to do it for in a certain way without Srila Prabhupada's approval was not pleasing to him. So much so that he stopped the Radha Damodar party. I mean, it didn't actually stop immediately, but Tamal Krishna Maharaj went to China, and the people that continued, it was finished after a year or so.
I forgot the reason. What is the reason of stopping Radha Damodar party? There is some particular reason, isn't it?
No, not that. I mean, well, one was that Prabhupada sent Tamal Krishna Maharaj was a driving force in that party. He was he was like, and Srila Prabhupada here, you'll see he sent him to China.
Mm.
So without the leader, it didn't last long. You follow?
Yeah.
And then Srila Prabhupada left the planet, and then shortly thereafter he left the planet, and then the things were Tamal Krishna Maharaj in China. Then he became in charge in Bombay, stayed in India, things like that.
During Prabhupada time also, you mentioned several times that it was evolving in our operation and how the society ran. It was constantly evolving. So some changes which we see now also can be considered that seem similar based on time, place, circumstances. Some change.
I don't know where I said evolving. I never remember. Could you give an example?
No, example in the how morning program was, it's not set everything one day after day in the guru system, and
You don't be careful with apples and oranges there.
Yeah, but
yes, from the very beginning there were certain things that developed, but they were the changes, the adjustments during Prabhupada's time were all under his direction. Then if we say, oh, it's evolving later, we got to be very careful. How is it evolving? Is it evolving because we think it's a good idea, or do we have evidence that Srila Prabhupada liked it that way or wanted it that way? And so at least there should be a good discussion about this stuff.
Right.
Now, for example, you know, I mean, a lot of changes have happened. I notice now that usually there's a when you do abhishek now they use watermelon juice and cantaloupe juice and strawberry juice. And where did that come from? Is that an evolution, or is there actual uh, uh, authorization in the Shastra from Srila Prabhupada? Never heard it.
You'll be happy we didn't do it after conversation. We didn't do the juices. We just did the Panchamrit.
Okay, but in different places they do all these. So we have to be careful about when you say evolve. Evolve, usually you have the evolve, or is it devolve? Evolve kind of carries a connotation that it's getting better, whereas devolve means it's degrading. So we have to be careful about that. Anyway, the point of the offering was that there will be challenges during the time of, in ISKCON. The different people have different views about how things are done. But Srila Prabhupada emphasized, his emphasis of the point was what?
Harinam.
Harinam, chanting. The emphasis on the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantras is really, really important.
And I also noticed the point that what you shared from the Transcendental Diaries, that Prabhupada did the traveling Sankirtan party made a lot of money selling thousands of books, but Prabhupada didn't care in a way, did not care about, him, that much money would not be made. And he continued to stress on
they stay on the right path, not come up with a different preaching method just because there's money. That was consistent with Srila Prabhupada's advice. I know it's not that he was against money, of course not, but not by adjusting the preaching philosophy. Does that make sense? Prananath Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for reading this offering. I was also thinking, at least at that time, even if there was this kind of an issue, they all could go to Prabhupada, and then Prabhupada overrule, and then, in this particular case, send Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj to China. But now,
I give the name because not because I want to accuse Tamal Krishna Maharaj, but just because his name is it's already out there in this story. It's already been said many, many times, so it's nothing. I'm not hiding it. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, Prabhu. That was, I should have. In a generic way, what I meant was, it sometimes becomes difficult in I see in today's time. Is that opportunity there? When there is a difference,
Good point. So technically that's supposed to be the function of the GBC, but in this case, because the GBC had made this resolution, which was, by the way, later rescinded. It was later rescinded. What to do?
And that inadvertently, if there is nothing done, leads to factionism.
Yes.
Everywhere.
So Srila Prabhupada recommended, he initially, what did he recommend initially? You get that? To make a committee of
small
talking.
committees.
To make a committee. To make a committee. And even though it didn't actually happen as a committee, there was already a temple president's committee already done. So the temple president's committee discussed. So another group of Vaishnavas was discussing, and they brought their concerns to Srila Prabhupada. So in this case now, what would you do? A group of Vaishnavas could approach the GBC, I suppose.
Doesn't seem
But
to
the
be
main thing is the chanting of Hare Krishna, right?
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
And an interesting point, one of the temple presidents that was involved in this interaction between Srila Prabhupada and the different devotees was named Bahudak, who's no longer with us. But he was the chairman of the temple president's committee. And later, after Srila Prabhupada's departure, there was some concern about the supposed appointment of new gurus. So there's just some trouble came up with that. And so he was emphasizing, just as you did, that when there's a difference of opinion with the GBC, you should develop a group and come up with other solutions and submit them. That was his rationale for working, and then that became the quote Guru Reform movement at that time, which was important to set some of the records straight, some of the stuff straight. That makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So because actually when that started, there was pushback that who are you to say, what are you to do, or why should you do this? Is this authorized by the GBC? The GBC didn't make this committee, and so the response was, well, when this incident occurred in 1976, we had to appeal to Srila Prabhupada, this group. So we're appealing to Srila Prabhupada now. This group is again doing so. Anyway, I don't know if that does that help at all?
Yeah, but it's somehow the ground reality seems that, the solution in most cases seems to be not very or that compromise or that solution doesn't seem to be what you just read out. At the end of the day, it still seems that go somewhere else or do something else, or it doesn't translate into a solution as Prabhupada recommended here in this particular case.
Or to send somebody to China, or one could self exile oneself to China also, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
That's what
so
I mean.
so then that's why, I mean, Srila Prabhupada, he ultimately sent the person to China, right? But his main instruction about the factionalism was that the important thing was the chanting of the holy names, whatever that will reduce the factionalism or get rid of it. That was and what he did also was very interesting also. But the specifics of, he exiled people a few times. You might know that, but that wasn't generally done.
Yes.
One time, this is one, and actually, when Tamal Krishna Maharaj went to China, he didn't stay in China very long. He came back, and he started preaching the same stuff that he was doing before, after Prabhupada left. But anyway, so I mean, so then when early on, Kirtanananda Maharaj tried to take over ISKCON. You know this, perhaps. He was the first sannyasi, so he was sent back to United States, and then he thought, oh, I'm the sannyasi, I'm supposed to take over ISKCON. And then Prabhupada intervened and said, no, he can only wash pots. That's it. And then during 1970 Janmashtami celebration in New Vrindavan, there was a couple of devotees started preaching Mayavadi philosophy. Prabhupada said, no, you can't do that. You have to go outside of the movement. You can't do that in our movement. No, Mayavadi philosophy, not allowed. So there's a few times things like that happen. But the general instruction is really chanting the holy names is the prime benediction and the prime method for not having factions. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Anyway, thank you for listening. Oh, it's 9:23 already. Wow. Thank you. Pancha kalpatarubhyascha kripas
Yasya kripa sindhubhyascha patitanam
Dhanam Pavanebhyo
Hare
Vaishnavibhyo.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Vishnugada Prabhu.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Everyone.